How is transformation and healing sustained in one's life? By Katrina Peterson. I've been asked this question many times in my life, both by clients and other colleagues. I've also often reflected on this in my personal time in regards to what are the fundamental ways, what are the tenets, the basis, the foundations that keeps change in one's life. So this talk is about just a few points around this. So as we start, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Katrina Peterson, and I marry my intuitive gifts as a healer with professional trainings in multi and interdisciplinary fields. I've been trained in neuromovement education, trauma resolution, Western and Buddhist psychology, energy medicine based on the subtle body anatomy, neurovascular integration, and in short, my deep interest is how to further human development and help people develop themselves to their full potential. I offer myself as a transformational healer to help you access your full expansion into yourself. This translates into powerful outcomes in your relationships with your work, with your family, your friends, yourself. And essentially, you are really much bigger than you think you are. I am trained by sight to look at someone and see where there is freedom or not in their posture and movement. When I touch people, I feel the electromagnetic fields and the dissonance within their systems come to the foreground. Usually this pattern is the way their nervous system has arranged itself to negotiate trauma in their lives. I also sense how the fluid moves in their bodies. Is there freedom and flow, or where does it stop and not make a connection with the rest of the system? So as I'm touching, I'm also looking. I'm looking, where does the movement stop at the hips? Does the movement stop at the shoulder? Does the movement stop at the diaphragm? Does the movement stop on the left side? Does the ankle on the right foot not move this way but move that way? So by touch and extrasensory information, I get to take in and see the way people use their life force. And often, people use their life force to hold down anxiety, terror, rage, fear. And similarly, the patterns of life force movement shifts when there is joy, relaxation, and connectedness. So my work really is seeing the bridges and the connections of what makes one state of being be relaxing and joyful and another not, and how do we bridge those gaps. So I work with the physical, emotional, as well as the subtle body anatomy. By bringing awareness to the costs and benefits of life patterns as they arise, I facilitate the removal of these beliefs embedded in the subtle body. We then proceed to rebuild and repair the anatomy to support structures necessary to create a new way of being. So I don't work in parts, but rather as a whole system, so that the organization of the client is higher and more optimal. And what I've found is that the patterns of how people negotiate their sense of safety and manageability of life become very, very evident to me when they come in, especially from a touch perspective. At the same time of holding those patterns, I see people's wholeness. And this particular pattern is just part of their development. And at some point, this pattern has really been a lifesaver and helped my clients dramatically and tremendously in their life. And down the line, this particular pattern that had been a gift is now a pathology. And underneath that pathology are more unrevealed gifts that can be brought up to the surface. So how do I work? Let me give you examples here. An example is a client coming in feeling uneasy and feeling slime after an encounter with another person, perhaps in the last week. The scenario presents itself as the other person trying to get the client to do something he or she doesn't want to do. There's a form of manipulation either from the client or the other person. It could be that there was an inappropriate energetic relationship that had happened. This means part of the other person's energy has embedded itself onto the client's human energetic structure. This may be conscious or unconscious, and this happens to many people. In this particular case, the result is some form of unease. It could come in a form of a headache or some sort of discomfort. So how do I approach this client? For this particular scenario, I facilitate the removal of this inappropriate energetic relationship, and also find out if this is a repeated occurrence for the client in his or her life. If it is, we look at life patterns and how self-esteem issues within the client consistently invites this kind of intrusion of another. We look at the costs and benefits of this particular belief, organization, and behavior, and only once there is a complete awareness of this life pattern can that life pattern be removed from the energetic structure of the client. Sometimes a piece reveals itself unexpectedly in this dialogue, and as it releases, the wisdom within it emerges. I've seen this happen to a lot of clients, so it's pretty common. I've also found that certain clients with issues around self-esteem benefit tremendously with added facilitation on the development of communication skills. Awareness of an issue is not the same as knowing the communication skills to express oneself. I teach clients how to say no, and say it 5 to 10 different ways at times. And not only say it, but also declare it in embodied ways. When they say no, is their core saying no? Are the shoulders saying no? Is the no flexible or rigid? Is there fear underneath? Is there a sense of an impending threat if they say no? These are all very valuable information, and often these go unnoticed when we are by ourselves. But within the session, we really focus and take the time in the spaces and be with the gaps. So an example would be, I had a male client who came in with neck pain, and underneath the physiological pattern was a somatic memory of turning away from his abusive mother when he was a child. Part of our session was an exploration of my walking towards him from the other side of the room, and him learning to identify in degrees when to say no in my approach. And at some point, reversing it where he would then walk towards me and I would say no. So we'd go back and forth so that there is an energetic learning. There is an actual neural firing, a learning of a behavior, taking into consideration the spaces and the gaps of another person, listening to what is it in them that they might not even know because they've overridden themselves many times in the past. So much of our history and behavior is nonverbal. So I work from these places to facilitate the awareness required relationally to be healthy in the moment. Behavior learning and change happens relationally. It's just we're human beings, we're relational beings. That's just fact. I facilitate clients through movement to widen the spectrum of self-permission and allowance to explore beyond what is familiar. And believe it or not, as adults, we still often have the voices of our parents and teachers setting the permission factor for us. I often have to remind students and clients to occupy the floor more fully, to have more space under the armpits, or relax the tongue in the mouth. There are lots of ingrained habits in how we make ourselves small unnecessarily. And it's very useful for another person to reflect and guide us and remind us of just some of those places that may be experienced differently in our sense of ourselves. I might have a client, another example, I might have a client lie down with knees bent on the floor or the table and ask the client to place his right foot on a different place on the table each time. And the reason would be for me so that the client can know experientially what is a stable footing versus a non-stable one. Where is it that he could put his foot and his leg that he has the most optimal stability of holding his leg on that position? And try it yourself. Lie down on the floor or on a bed or wherever and have your foot go closer to your bums. Now have it go really far away. And play with the distances there and see where do you feel stability or not. Now just go ahead and have the foot and leg go to the left, so the hips are in a different position. Now swing the other way and have it go to the right, and notice which position gives you stability. So this lesson is not just finding what is stable in the moment where you put your foot and your leg then, but you get to really understand somatically, experientially, what stability is. And it's not stability just physically, it's stability emotionally, it's stability intellectually, it's stability and confidence. And so a lot of what I do is actually I facilitate people to develop confidence in themselves by these movements and by witnessing from a place of facilitation and guidance. But really it's about the witnessing part. So if we're to go back again to this example, it seems so simple, but most people I work with, they have to be coaxed into exploration. And I have to really say, it's really all right to not know. And try many, many different ways. And from this exploration, know what you know. This is learning. This is how confidence develops. These nuances are extremely essential part of the learning process. One can say no by voice, but completely be disassociated. I teach an embodied way of connecting with emotions, sensations, postural stance, and application of needs from thought to action. Patterns of contraction and tension are deeply embedded in the physical structure. Often people have become habituated to their shape that it goes unnoticed, except when there is that low-grade feeling of nervousness, or a sense of ants are crawling on the skin, or the little tremors or twitches, or the sense of pressure pushing in, or just the feeling of not being right somehow. The client can be very high-functioning individual, and a very, very high-functioning individual in society, and can still have these patterns that stop them from fully accessing their full life force. Or the client can have chronic pain, physical or emotional, and have seen many, many professionals for help in the past. Many of my clients have already done years of psychological and spiritual work, and also body work, and seen many doctors. Because I see people with a whole range, through a whole range of a spectrum in terms of health. But when they do come into my door, what is clear is they're ready for the somatic piece of embodiment in a whole new way. So I follow the push-pull tension of this play as it dynamically presents itself unique to each individual until it discharges, melts, and completes its cycle in an integrated way. It's like a river flowing. Sometimes it gets stuck in eddies and ferments and foments. This translates as behavior cycling through over and over again, and the client not knowing how to stop it or jump out, even when they desire it so badly. I mean, all of us have at some point have some form of pattern of behavior where this is true for us. So in the sessions, sometimes there is talk, memories come up for the clients, sometimes it's in silence. Unlike traditional psychotherapy though, I will stop clients in their stories in order to guide them to sense their physical bodies at that particular junction of the story, in order to break the habit of this association of cognitive and as well as embodied affect. Because my hands are touching clients as they're lying down, and my clients are always fully clothed. But anyways, because my hands are touching clients as they're lying down, I'm following the unraveling of the micro movements of their unconscious selves as and in their bodies. I use this information in the service of the clients in that they may experience that feeling in a present way, fully seen, safe, and supported by another person. This coming home to self in a real-time relational setting resets the nervous system in powerful ways. I've seen this over and over again. Part of this unraveling and reorganizing are also the brain learning new ways of moving. Moving physically, moving emotionally, moving intellectually, moving relationally. That's where my understanding of movement education is valuable for the client. It can be scary to let go of a behavior that one has relied on for safety unless he or she has other possibilities to let go into. Just like a leech won't let go of one end and it's planted into another end, so too we are as human beings. My work is deeply, deeply ingrained in the relational component of being able to learn new ways of being and becoming, while another person is witnessing you fully in your expansion. I have found this an essential component in behavior change being maintained and sustained. Thank you so much.